Good morning. I'm Echo Mendez for the Edina Sentinel and NemoNews.net. I am being joined by Dr. Karisha Devlin. She is with the University of Missouri Extension Office. She is an agribusiness specialist, one of only 4 in the entire state of Missouri. Hi, Karisha. Thank you so much for doing this live interview with us.
Good morning, Echo. Thank you for inviting me.
I got in contact with you because I started looking into some of the food supply chain interruptions, and I really want to talk about how that's affecting the Northeast Missouri region. We've already noticed the prices of meat at local grocery stores has gone up considerably. And this is something that the grocery store chains have, kind of come out and said they don't have any control over this. And I know that you are the best person to be able to walk me through what's happening right now.
Okay. Well, I'm going to kind of start at a big level and then work our way down. So right now, because of the COVID-19, we have 20 major meatpacking plants in the country that have temporarily closed. And that's because they've had an outbreak of the COVID in the coronavirus in their plants. And so what that has done is that's cut our U.S. beef and pork production by 35% and affected chicken by 7%. So how that affects us as consumers is our entire supply chain has been disrupted. So we have the farmers that are producing the meat, and they're supposed to end up at the plants, as the end result to be processed to make their way back to consumers. But those plants are closed. So what we're left with is a lot of animals that have nowhere to go. And to put this in perspective, there's a certain weight that those animals need to be at to when they go to the plants. And it's really imperative that when they're at that weight, they go to the plants. Because for one thing, the plants are built, their equipment can only handle a certain weight level. And so once those animals get over that weight level, it's not going to really work well for them to go through that processing stage at the plants. Plus, once animals get to a certain weight level, it's not good for the animal itself when it has excess weight on it. Much like us as humans, more weight, we start can have some health issues from that. So we have all these animals with nowhere to go, and then all these producers that are just kind of sitting on a product that they're not able to sell, which is very disruptive to their operations, and then it just trickles down even to our local economy, and also circles back around as consumers when we're used to having a supply of meat, a readily supply of meat at the grocery stores, and right now that's just not able to happen because we're having that disruption in the plants.
So, as far as our local producers, and I'm just talking about here in Northeast Missouri, what are they doing? Are they keeping, are they holding on to the animals? Are they having to euthanize them? And then on top of that, what kind of a hardship is that on financially? Because of course, to keep these animals at this certain stage, they're going to be, isn't it costing a lot to having to continue to feed them and house them and things?
It's a huge expense to our producers. And so people are doing a variety of things. We have some producers that are reaching out to local individuals, and they're either selling those animals and those people are taking them to the lockers, or maybe the producers are taking the animals themselves to lockers to be processed. But what we're facing now is that our lockers are full. They're kind of just being swarmed right now with all these animals that are coming in to be processed. And, I've had people reach out and ask, well, why is that a problem? Why can't they work, faster, or why can't they move these animals through? But they are just being swamped, and they have a certain capacity level. And, it takes a certain amount of time for these animals to go through, to be processed. And it's just not something that, can be rushed. They're working as fast as they can. So, some are able to sell to local people. We've had some individuals for like contract hog producers, and I can speak from this personally. There's someone that has some piglets that aren't very old, and he knows that there's nowhere for them to go, and he cannot feed them right now. So he's reaching out, and he's just practically giving them away to anybody. I mean, there's like a small price associated with them, but he's just giving them away to anybody that would be willing to feed them out until they are ready to be processed. But now, even if you have an animal that you're feeding out, that you're wanting to get processed eventually, you need to be calling the locker now, because they are getting booked out, some until December. I know my family that we're going to feed out some hogs, and the closest date we could get was like the end of September. And so it's just, we have a lot of animals that have nowhere to go. And so unfortunately, a lot of producers are having to face the option of disposal of those animals. And so that is when talking about euthanasia and, what you can do to dispose of these animals. And it's very unfortunate that we've gotten into that point, and very, very unfortunate for those producers. And, the one thing about our farmers that are raising our animals, they care about those animals. They care about their health. They care about their welfare. And so it's not, to have to put these animals down. I mean, that's stressful for them. I mean, no one wants to have to do that. And then also on top of that, having that impact to their finances. It's going to be a long road ahead, because even when the supply chain disruption, when that fixed and the plants get back online, we're going to have so many animals that are flooding the market. Basically, like farmers are going to be taking their animals to the sale, and so what they get for those animals will be cut. So the prices for those animals will be low. So even when things get back to moving, it's still going to be a financial hardship for our producers.
What kind of losses are we looking at here for local livestock producers, kind of now and in the long term? Because I heard the prices are already super low, which is kind of hard to, it's kind of hard to put together when prices at the grocery store are skyrocketing, and then, prices at the sale, livestock sales are plummeting. How does, is there any way to kind of be able to just give an estimate on how much we're losing right now?
I don't have any hard facts on that, or hard numbers. I haven't even seen any myself come across. I know that's something that, even the university is looking at, and having, our economists are having discussions about. The problem is it's just a supply and demand issue. Yes, at the consumer level, the demand for meat is high. And as far as meat that's been processed, that's been cut up, that's ready to sell, there's a shortage of that on that end. But when you get to the other end, the animals that need to go to the plants to be processed, there's a huge supply. So we have it's like an inverse relationship between the supply of live animals versus the supply of meat that's ready for purchase. And so that's kind of where we are on that spectrum. But it's going to be a hard road ahead for producers. I think if you can possibly buy local, if you're at a position where you can work with a farmer to purchase an animal, and maybe you're feeding it out, or maybe you've already made an appointment with a locker to get it processed. I mean, that's one way that you can reach out and help. Again, I know not everybody's in that position that they can do that, or that they even have the space for that amount of meat, because, for instance, with a a steer that you take to get processed, I mean, that's going to be, once you get it back from the processor, from the facility that you use, that's going to be a freezer full of beef, like a whole freezer packed full of beef. And so not everybody has the room or, the capacity to handle that much beef or pork at the same time. So there's kind of those issues as well.
What kind of resources are available out there for producers right now, as far as, as far as like guidance they can get maybe from Extension? And then also, is there a mental health component that's being looked at because of the high stress, because of the financial crunch?
Yes, to all of those questions. So one thing that has been worked for, I guess, at a financial level, there's the USDA is putting out programs. All the details on them have not been released yet, but it's going to be some disaster-related programs that will help our farmers and ranchers get through this. There'll be payments that'll be coming out, and this is a part of, the CARES Act that got passed, but it kind of trickles down. USDA has passed another program that's to help farmers during this time. With that program, there's also a piece that will help farmers that are having to make those decisions for depopulating their herds. And so that is, they can contact their local USDA. NRCS is the one, I believe, that's going to be assisting with the depopulating herds piece. But I just looked at everything. USDA is going to be coming out with a lot of things to try to help our producers, but all those rules are being written right now. So I'm not sure, like if you call the local USDA office today, how much they can share with you, but know that is some resources that are coming. Another one, MU Extension, we actually do have a guide sheet that talks about dead animal disposal laws in Missouri. So if it's something that you are having to do yourself, or you need to see what those laws are, because DNR, the Department of Natural Resources, does have certain laws in place as far as how you can dispose of those animals. If you're interested in supporting your local producers, there's a Missouri Food Finder that Extension has come out with that you can click on that will link individuals and producers together. And this is, even if you're looking for locally grown vegetables, it's a really nice tool for that. I've even heard from people that just have more questions about the processors, like local small butcher shops. And we do have, things are regulated by, we have a meat and poultry inspection program that's regulated through the Department of Ag. And so if you have questions about that, or if as a producer you're wanting to sell meat, you might want to go to their website and kind of just check that, because they do have certain requirements that you would have to follow. If you're selling meat, you need to make sure that it's been processed at a USDA certified facility. If you sell the animal just to a person, and it's up to them where they're going to take it. But if you're actually selling meat, it has to be stamped that it's USDA certified. And then also counties, they may have certain regulations as far as the sale of products in their counties. So you might also want to check with your local health department if you're wanting to sell a product that you're raising. And you hit on a good point, Echo. The whole stress level is very high for everyone right now, just across the board. I don't think ever in most of our lifetimes have we seen this level of stress and kind of uncertainty, and that's affecting everyone. I don't think anybody is untouched by this. Extension has developed a stress toolkit that is on our website. You can also access this through our social media, which has some resources that you can reach out to. We actually have a a counseling service that you can call or text. And it's, of course, highly confidential. And it's just if you get to the point that you feel like you need to talk to somebody, there's someone there that you can talk to. And again, you can do it by text if you're not comfortable in having a conversation, or there's a phone number you can call.
We've talked about this before, so let's talk about this again, about how private local farmers are.
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard for local farmers to reach out because they are having problems. Mm-hmm. Very hard to reach out. You know, we've talked about how hard it is to reach out locally because there is a factor in, you know, everyone knowing that you're in financial trouble. And that's something that was such a challenge to get local producers and farmers, you know, mental health help because they had such a hard time. And I think it's commendable that the university figured this out and started this talk to someone who is not part of your immediate community, you know, because farming is pretty cutthroat as far as land leasing and all of that. Like people are, so I don't know how long this program has been going on, but I'm wondering, do you think it's helping that that our farmers and producers now have an option where they can reach out in a confidential way and talk to an expert and be comfortable in the fact that the whole community is not going to know what's going on with them? Like this is a private interaction between them and the person they're talking to, you know, a mental health professional.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think we are seeing more people calling in. We actually, we have that one in Missouri, and then we're also partnered with they're operating out of Iowa State, but there's several universities involved in it, but it's like a national hotline number that's focused specifically on agriculture. And they are seeing an uptick in the numbers of calls that they are getting. So I think it is important for people to feel safe in sharing these stresses or sharing these feelings that they're having, because sometimes people don't even want to discuss these with their own families. You know, it's maybe they don't want to worry their family members, and so they're keeping all of this bottled up inside. So just having that opportunity to talk to somebody that doesn't know you and doesn't know your background and doesn't know your family, I think that's really important. I think there's also some importance that falls on us to not be afraid to reach out to somebody if we see that they are struggling. Like maybe it's from a conversation that we have with somebody and they share that, they're going through a hard time, or maybe just from the things that they're sharing with, you can pick up that there's a lot of stressors there. Or even especially if you see somebody that just kind of completely changes as far as their personality, or maybe they're not taking care of themselves. Maybe they've just really deviated off of kind of their normal routine. It's just, those are kind of signs that things are not going well for that person. So for us to be aware of that and to not be afraid to, reach out to somebody and say, hey, I care. And, is there some way I can help you? Or, even sharing resources with that person. Like, if you ever need someone to talk to, here's a number that you can reach out to. Because I think sometimes we even get, well, we don't want to get involved, or we don't want to intrude. Yeah. But, at times we need to, because sometimes people just need to know that we care.
Karisha, thank you so much. Is there anything that I'm leaving out? Because I don't know. I'm not well versed on, I'm not well versed in ag.
Well, I think you're not giving yourself the credit that you're due, Echo. I think just you being, you recognizing that this is an issue and taking the time to gather facts and get information out to help. I think that speaks so highly of you and what you're trying to do for not only our community, but this region.
Well, thank you. And on that note, if you're watching this live stream, I'm going to find links to all of these things, and I will post them in the comments section of this live stream, and then we will get some sort of a post put on nemonews.net, hopefully within the next day or two. We're just it's Monday morning and we're a little bit swamped. But this was definitely a conversation that I wanted to have, kicking off the week. Meat prices skyrocketing. Mm-hmm. I know in the Sentinel this week and possibly in some of our other papers, we will have some data and information about euthanization and other options available to producers, and then we'll get as much information about these programs. Before we go, Karisha, is there anything that these big contract producers are doing? Because we do have a number of those as well. Mainly pork, I would say. Well, and here in Knox County, we have several, chicken facilities.
Unfortunately for those contract producers, it's even harder because their options are even more limited because they're dealing with a larger entity or a company that they basically work for, that they're producing for. And so, with some of those situations, they're just having, it's like a mandatory disposal that they're having to do. Some people are losing contracts. I talked with, which this is getting outside of our region, but in central Missouri, there's several people that produce turkeys for a company. And I was speaking with a producer just last week, and she was talking about that several of her neighbors that also produce turkeys are just being dropped from their contracts. So that is happening. I haven't heard that yet as far as Knox County, if any situations like that. Another thing that is happening is some animals that have hogs that are pregnant are being told to abort those animals because that's just what needs to happen, because there's once those piglets are born, there's not anywhere to go. But for those that have larger animals that are ready to go to the plants, a lot of them are being disposed or being asked to be disposed. So it's really a hard situation right now for those contract producers because their options are very limited because of the companies that they're working for, basically, or raising animals for.
It kind of blows my mind because when I think just about Missouri, and it's not as big as even some other states who have these huge, ginormous CAFOs, but I mean, we're talking tens or maybe even hundreds of thousands of head of animals. It blows my mind.
It is, and it's really heartbreaking, on all levels right now, because it's sad to see that this is what's going to have to happen to these animals. It's sad that the income that these producers are losing because of this situation. So I know President Trump is really pushing hard for these plants to open back up, but they're trying to do so in a safe manner. And I think they're having heavy cleaning. It's their workforce can't come to work because they're sick. That's not improving things at all. So it's just that this process is just being really slow. So all we can hope for is that they can get these plants cleaned up, their workers healthy, or perhaps bring in some other workers that are healthy. But then that's still a lag time because you've got to train people. This is not something that just you or I could walk in off the street and start off. I mean, you have to be trained to be able to be on one of these lines. And so it's, it's a hard situation for everybody.
Yeah. And we have several in our region, just in this, our region of the state. We have several just over state lines.
Right.
Just as close by. This definitely affects, we have people who are employed at these facilities.
And that's the hardship on them too, because, which I don't know their situation if they're being sent home with any kind of compensation, but, they're temporarily without a job. So, yeah, hard.
Well, thank you, Karisha.
Thank you. And I will, back to you were asking for some maybe specific estimates. I will see what I can find for that as far as maybe some dollar figures and share with you. So perhaps in a future Sentinel story, you could get out.
That would be awesome. In my mind, for some reason, my brain always goes back to the 80s farm crisis, which I was not here for and have no recollection of, but I have read a lot about it and just how devastating it was. And so that's always kind of something that I am comparing things to on a regular basis. Like, how does this hit with the 80s farm crisis? And there, and lots of people in our region will remember that and how devastating it was, people losing farms. The suicide rate was unacceptable, so I'm really glad that the university is doing things, especially, the mental health end of it and putting together as many options as they have. So.
And I am proud the university has been very proactive with this. Farm stress is not anything new. Unfortunately, we've been dealing with this for a few years now because we've had the drought, we had flooding, we've had low commodity prices. So it's there's been a kind of a struggle already, and then with this on top, it's just making things a lot worse.
Well, we appreciate you, Karisha, and all the hard work you're doing and all the hard work of the experts of the extension system. And we thank you for being a great resource for us to help people understand what's happening and move forward.
Thanks, Echo.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.